Hi folks, this is Aquifel, and as I've promised you in the past, I want to now start with the promotion series, where I talk about the different promotions we have in the wrestling business. Well, first of all, because I want to give you my 2 cents about some of the promotions out there, because there are a lot of promotions that are worth talking about, both in the positive as in the negative sense. And second of all, maybe because some people will hear something about a promotion they didn't know thus far, because not every guy or every person is an internet fan and or smart mark in the sense of who watched every stuff that was out there, or almost every stuff. And maybe one or two viewers see something they like or hear something they like and think, hey, well, there's something else than WWE and maybe even New Japan out there, and well, maybe I should take a look at the promotion. And I wanted to start with TNA because TNA is a very, very special case for me. And the promotion was founded in 2002 by Jeff Jarrett, whom we all know from TNA, obviously, from WCW and WWE as Double J Jeff Jarrett. Nobody would have guessed that now. And his father, Jerry Jarrett. Well, as I said, it started in 2002. Well, the first thing was the idea that TNA should be a little bit different. After the stuff that happened with WCW, some TV stations, at least what Jeff and Jerry Jarrett felt and Bob Ryder, what these three felt was like, they might think wrestling is bad for business. I mean, look at WCW. As Eric Bischoff had pointed out a lot of times, it's a company that made millions of dollars the one year and lost as much and twice as much millions the next year. So obviously, some smaller stations were like, I don't really trust this wrestling nonsense. And they had a new concept with weekly pay-per-views, because monthly pay-per-views without the build-up, you would be an indie promotion that has some events and a bigger event, and So weekly pay-per-views, and with Panda Energy, who bought somewhere in 2002, I don't exactly know when, and up to this day, I'm not exactly sure what Panda Energy does in detail, and it's irrelevant for this video, so I won't look it up on the internet. They got 71% of the shares, and in the end could really say what TNA does, because it was controlling interest, and well, with 71%, you pretty much can steer the promotion in any way you want. But back to the weekly pay-per-views. Well, TNA's first pay-per-view already showed some other stuff that really was a concept with TNA. The mixture of younger guys and the older, more well-known stars and more renowned stars. And of course, first of all, they needed a title whom these guys could fight for which these guys could fight. And it was the NWA World Heavyweight title. And it even went that far that because Dan the Beast Severn, who was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion at that time, wasn't able to compete in this first show of TNA, the title was vacated, and there was a gauntlet for the Gold Battle Royal, which Ken Shamrock and Malice won. And afterwards they were to fight each other for the vacant title, and Shamrock won. But the interesting thing is, looking at the gauntlet for the Gold Battle Royal, there are guys like Gangrel, Steve Corino, Scott Hall, Buff Bagwell, Jeff Jarrett himself, and other guys. Showing there were a lot of names that people from somewhere somehow knew. The most interesting match in this area is the opener, the six-man tag team match between the Flying Elvises with Jimmy Wang Yang, whom we all know now, and most notably Jerry Lynn, an ECW original and legend, for the veterans that were to draw, or were meant to draw the people into these pay-per-views, and a young guy who became one of the biggest stars that ever started out, so to speak, in TNA, AJ Styles. We all know him. Well, after the first weekly pay-per-view was a success, of course the second weekly pay-per-view was pretty important too, because it showcased the second thing, or probably the thing that TNA became most famous for. It was a four-way double elimination match for the vacant NWA TNA X title, and four-way double elimination match that was rather it was a four-way elimination match in which you had to be eliminated 2 times. What a stipulation. That's another thing TNA was famous for, stupid stipulations. But they got Ricky Steamboat to be the special referee for this match, which it's a big name you can really incorporate in your pay-per-views to get a little bit attention. And the match was between AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn, Low-Ki, and Psychosis. AJ Styles, as I said, the guy that was Mr. TNA for almost all the time he was there. He left in late 2011. Jerry Lynn, the ECW original or legend. Low-Ki, who many came to know as Caval in WWE, and other people knew him as Low-Ki from Ring of Honor. He later that year he really he became the first Ring of Honor World Champion, and he started out here in TNA too, and Ring of Honor, and I think even some other stuff before that, but doesn't matter right now. And Psychosis, whom we all know from Mexico and of course back then WCW. AJ Styles won the thing and became the first TNA X Division champion, or X champion, and the X Division was the thing that really separated TNA from WWE, because WWE at that time they had cruiserweight action, but come to think of it, WWE was never that great at a cruiserweight division. WCW lived off the cruiserweight division for a long time, in my opinion. They were the backbone of the company because they provided the quality that the main event lacked. They just had the big names in the main events. And WWE never really had a strong cruiserweight division. They had cruiserweight title, but somehow, and this is a point where TNA really excelled, because the cruiserweight or the X Division title and division were great, and it wasn't about the weight limits. That's why it wasn't called Cruiserweight Championship, because it was about the technical wrestling, high flying ability, all of that, and that's why it's the X Division. X for Extreme, I think. Another big thing, we had matches like Scott Hall versus Jeff Jarrett. I don't know if anybody really cared for it, but the names might have drawn a little bit. But we saw America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm, one of the greatest tag teams in TNA history, go against the Rainbow Express, Bruce and Lenny. Well, the most notable thing about them was that they were accompanied to the ring by Joel Gardner. But you can see the idea here. Old names or veterans that are well known and young, exciting talent who really could go. Well, there were a lot of nice matches for the X Division title, and of course we had for the NWA World title, we had some of the same stuff we saw in late WCW, and because we had some big names, but not always the wrestling quality for the world title. But anyway, in 2004, in May, TNA Wrestling announced that they would be included on Fox Sports with their new TV show, TNA Impact, which aired on June 3rd, 2004. It was the first event where the TNA used the six-sided ring, something they, I think, got from AAA. Or the Administración de irgendwas, I don't really know, in Mexico. I'm not good in Spanish, so mi no habla español. So the problem is, or the cool thing is, this was another thing that really separated them from WWE and most of the other American promotions with the six-sided ring. And the first Impact featured matches such as America's Most Wanted winning the NWA World Tag Team title from Dallas and Kid Nash, or TNA X Division #1 contendership four-way match between AJ Styles, Chris Sabin, and Elix Skipper and Michael Shane. Well, the action continued, but it took until in September 2004, TNA held their last weekly pay-per-view. The most notable, a pretty notable thing here is that Jeff Jarrett defended his title against Jeff Hardy, the world title, and shortly after that, Impact was became more and more prominent, and they headed into their very first classic pay-per-view, so to speak, with Victory Road in November 2004. Well, the first pay-per-view featured a match like the 20-man X Division gauntlet between a lot of guys, and Hector Garza won this match. Another notable match was, there was a Monsters Ball 3-way, that was okay, but Petey Williams versus AJ Styles for the X Division title, pretty nice match. A last man standing tag team match between Triple X and America's Most Wanted. And of course, the NWA World Heavyweight title ladder match between Jeff Hardy and Jeff Jarrett. But it was a nice first pay-per-view. It was pretty decent, but nothing too memorable. But it led to the second pay-per-view. And this one is, I haven't been following TNA since 2002. It took me a while longer because, obviously I was away from wrestling for some time. And in Germany you really couldn't watch TNA back then. Or at least it would have been hard. So I watched most of this stuff later on. And this pay-per-view featured one of the matches that really got me into TNA, and it really showed me it's completely different than much stuff that WWE does. And at the time I didn't like much what WWE did, so TNA obviously was a great alternative. I mean, we had a pretty decent match between Diamond Dallas Page and Raven, whom I both loved in WCW, and Raven in ECW. Petey Williams versus Chris Sabin in a very cool match for the X Division title. And of course, the main event, America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris and James Storm versus Triple X, Christopher Daniels and Primetime Elix Skipper, in a losing team must split up 6 sides of steel cage match. And this match up to date is one of my favorite matches of all time. It's really awesome. I mean, the spots alone. Elix Skipper running on the top of the 6 sides of steel, the cage, from one side to the other, and he does a top cage Hurricane Rana. It had a lot of drama. It had a lot of cool spots which I hadn't seen before. And still, it was no spot fest. It was pretty good wrestling match, very, very intense, very, very well performed, and yeah, with some astonishing spots and great drama. And in the end, this was like, I mean, come on, who doesn't at least watch some of TNA stuff and what they did back then, or what they do at times? Yeah, if you didn't watch it, I mean, come on, yeah, you could bore yourself to death with many stuff WWE did, or much of the stuff WWE did, or you could watch this exciting new shit. And the choice was obvious. At least it was for me. But, well, this is or marks the end of the first part of the series. As I said, I want to do it in a little, not in one video, but in 2, 3, or 4 videos. It's easier to follow, and you don't have to listen to me blab on for 50 minutes, 60 minutes. Well, this was the first part, and yeah, I chose this part because beginning 2005, Impact was on its way, or it was up and running. They had their pay-per-views. They had the match that put them really put them on the map. The good X Division action before you could say yes, that was cool. And this was something where TNA had a storyline that they really followed through and finished with an just plain awesome match. One of the best matches I've seen in my 20 plus watching wrestling career. So just plain awesome. And yeah, in the next video we'll start with the year 2005, where TNA had all the things intact, up and running. So hopefully you'll tune in then for the second part and the third part, and how many parts ever will follow until we're at the point where I think it's safe to say that TNA is still alive is not only a miracle but an insult to wrestling fans. So hopefully you'll tune in. Yours, Aquifel.